This is our open Q&A session. So if you have a question about a Trailhead module, an issue that you're facing at work, stuck on some piece of automation within Salesforce, whatever it is, this is just a forum to bring up those questions, and we'll see if we can help you out. And all that I ask is that if you do have a question, just use the raise hand icon at the bottom, and we'll kind of go in order, and we'll help answer questions. So with that, does anybody have any questions or topics that they would like to go through for today? Otherwise, I can tell you my contracts horror story that I ran into.
Well, last week we talked about doing CCs and BCCs on emails and flows.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. And can't you create an invocable method that would generate your Apex code to do that?
Yeah. I think whenever we talk about limitations of flow versus things that you can do in Apex, I think that there's always an answer there. We could just create an invocable Apex that'll send in whatever details you need. And in Apex, you can generate the email with the appropriate CCs, BCCs, all that stuff. I think the challenge that usually comes up with that is that you got to know Apex. And then before you can deploy that Apex code, you got to write a test class, and you got to do it in a sandbox and deploy it to production, or all the headaches you have to go through to do that. So it's definitely doable. Maybe if that's like the most difficult on the far end of the spectrum, maybe a little bit closer is looking for somebody that's already done that, and you can just take advantage of that. So things like unofficial SF or even the App Exchange, might have some prepackaged kind of invocable methods to do just that. Yeah, that's definitely always an option to try to roll your own. Is that what you ended up doing, or does anybody have an update on what they ended up doing with that use case from last week?
Yeah, I didn't do anything with it. It's not really a high priority. So it was just a nice if we can type of thing for now. Not critical. So
yeah,
haven't moved forward with that. Got so many other things to do. So
yeah, the to-do list never seems to shrink, to be honest with you. All right, cool. Ashley, see your hand up.
Yeah, I got a question about see how you guys would approach this solution. So I'm working with a call center, and we have we support broken down trucks out there. So we'll get a case, and on that case we'll create a service, and then on the service we have a link to the service. We have a custom object called a timer, and it's essentially like a task to follow up on that service to check status. And when that timer, the status of the timer changes to ready, it will trigger the case to route through omnichannel and get delivered to an agent. And that right there is fine, and it works well. But the problem that is happening is there will be multiple cases out there, multiple timers. So our agent will call a customer, let's say, or a service provider, and then they'll get off the phone, and 4 minutes later, a different agent will call that same customer about a different case. And then 2 minutes later, there's another. So there's multiple calls, like within like a 10-15 minute period, going to the same service provider. And they're like, why don't you just ask about all these at the same time? But they're not like related. So trying to figure out is there a way to like run a flow or some sort where it will look at these custom objects and the number that it's like set to call, or the company it's setting a call, and then provide a list. So when the agent gets that case routed through them, they open up the timer, but then they see like a list of other timers that are set to call that same service provider. So at least they can reference it and see and ask them about those while they're on the phone. Or another way to do it. I'm not really sure how to approach it.
I mean, that's kind of standard Service Cloud console features that should be right there. You should be able to see your related cases. So I'm not sure on what the setup you got there is. That you shouldn't need to go through flow, is what I'm saying. It's related to the same customer is what I mean. So you should be able to see other, related list of other cases for that customer, right?
You can do that. You can, but this This would be like a service provider, and the service provider itself is not our customer. We're routing our customer to that service provider. So the service provider, we're just like raging and checking on the status of that particular service. So that company is not our direct customer in this case, if that makes sense.
And the timers are also not case records. So it's like a separate object where you're keeping track of the follow-up, right?
Right. Right. So the common thing between the timers would be like the phone number that it's calling, or the name of the service provider. That would be the common thread amongst all these timers because they're not linked by case.
So I'm going to sound dumb. Is there any way to build a subflow onto this where you use logic to be like, if created, like if service provider equal, matches and the phone number matches for any cases built within a certain amount of time, that it all goes together?
Yeah, like the group them as a group. Initially, I was looking at that approach, but it's hard to group them because 15-minute window is too short, a half hour is too long, so you can't really do that either.
So I have a theory, but before I give you my theory, anybody else have any thoughts on how to address this? Okay, so here's my theory. And again, without knowing the specifics, this might not be directly applicable. You might have to modify this a little bit, but imagine where you have that service record that indicates that, hey, we need to pick up the phone and call this person. So from that record, you click a button, a lightning action that launches a screen-based flow that basically has the details, like in the top of the flow screen, you have the details about the person you're calling and the current service ticket. But you could also have some get records and things like that in that same screen flow that are grabbing all the other service tickets that are related to that same service provider that have a timer within the next not plus or minus, but like the maybe plus or minus 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is. So in real time, you click the button, you immediately query the data and then display it on the screen flow as like a data table where you can at least see it.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. That's the general idea, but I'm still getting up to speed on building flows and all the capabilities there. So like a data table and a flow. Okay.
Yeah, and we can walk through an example of that too. And then you can imagine where, like, if displaying them is the first step, that same data table component has the ability to basically be able to select records. And then when you select it and you click next, you can have it go a different path in your flow. So you imagine, like, if you're following up on this current service ticket, you can put in the details about that one. And then if they're giving you updates for the other one, you can click on those, click next, it'll stop the timer. You can put in the updates about that service ticket, click next, and basically keep going through it until you work through all those different items.
Yeah, that sounds exactly what I'm aiming for. Yeah.
Any thoughts on whether or not that would work? Is there any gaps in that logic? Otherwise, I'm gonna bring up my screen and maybe we can just run through a quick example of how we would do this.
It would definitely work. It just may get a little more complex than you can finish in the call, but yeah, definitely. My answer to this question initially is basically yes. I just kind of thought from your first explanation, I was like, man, this seems like some pretty standard service stuff but thanks for the more info in the deeper case.
Yeah. Yeah, I was also thinking, like, is there any way, to your point, Ryan, about like the fact that a lot of the case functionality is built into the service console, service cloud, all that good stuff. Is there any way to get the service record, timer information, all that kind of stuff onto the case? Like through some kind of roll-up mechanism or whatever it is that you would then be able to use that. But yeah, I don't know. But let's
well, on the case itself, you can do that. We have it shows associated services, associated timers. You can do that on the case. But the problem is when we're calling this particular service provider, they may be handling cases for a bunch of different customers.
Yeah.
And different vehicles and that sort of stuff. So that's where it doesn't link up. So you're having to reach out to that.
Yeah. Basically create yourself a custom list view that you can embed in there using a flow is
okay.
That way you can see stuff that I think is I think that's the same place, Bill, that you were going, right? So
I was going to go with a data table and a
Well-
screen flow.
yeah, data table on I'm sorry, on another project, we were calling that our custom list view. Essentially, we make yes, it's a data table and a screen flow. It's basically building your own related list using a data table and a screen flow and picking what you want to see like you would in a list view. So yeah, what you want to do. That's
Yeah, this is all dependent on me being able to log in the Trailhead right now. Oh, let me I'm trying to get through this. Caught in kind of a loop here. All right, so let's give this a whirl. And I will say, actually, this I might have mentioned this to you last time, but like talking about the vehicle maintenance and the service providers, I'm getting flashbacks to my time as an S4 in the military. So let's. I have no idea why it's not letting me log into Trailhead. And I think it might have something to do with the fact that this week I switched over to Chrome, but I might have to go back to Old Faithful here and bring up Firefox. All right, so here's the goal. Not going to be able to do the exact use case because we don't have like service providers and all that kind of stuff. But at a minimum, maybe we'll try to mock something up with the accounts and cases. So, for example, if you're looking at a particular case, click a button, it'll bring up a list, and it'll show you a data table with all the cases related to that similar account, like the linked account for that core case. That kind of would exercise the data table part of this, which I think is going to be the important part.
Yeah.
And again, maybe we can go through how to log in the Trailhead, because clearly this is like the 5th time I'm clicking approve on my phone here. Hopefully this is the last time. We'll see. Okay, so looks like that did it. Let me share my screen. Share screen. Okay, so there's my Trailhead. I'm going to go up to the my profile, go to hands-on.orgs, and somewhere around here I should have some kind of serviceable org that I can build something in. All right, so let's just kind of set the stage here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an account. I'm going to create like 4 cases on the account record, and we're gonna work on building a screen flow where if looking at a single case, I can see that case details as well as related case details for that account. That's going to be the goal here. So the first thing I'll do is let's go back to the standard Salesforce. And there's a question. If you're in setup, is there a single button click somewhere on the screen to get to normal Salesforce? Or do you have to like delete the URL or go to the app launcher? Never been able to figure that out. All right, so let's go to all accounts. Go to Burlington Textiles. And under this, let's just make sure that we have 1 or 2 cases. All right, so we got 2 case records. I'm going to create a new one here just so we have 3 just to play with. And we'll call this test case. No pun intended. All right, and looks like that's everything I need. Case origin is email. Yes. Did I see a hand up?
Yeah, it's just me. Sorry, I was off for a second. We're doing this in sales instead of service.
Yeah. So again, it's not going to be the exact use case, right? So basically in Ashley's org, he has like cases, service providers, service record with timers, all that kind of stuff. What I want to demonstrate right now is just focusing on the account object and the cases. So the theory is if we're looking at one specific case, I want to be able to see that case details in a screen flow at the top, and then below that, a data table which shows all the related cases for that account as well. So again, not a direct example of what he's trying to do, but essentially the UI part of it is what we're trying to exercise here. All right. So I'm going to go to gear icon. Let's go to setup. Steven, I see your hand up. Yes.
Yeah, just wondering, like, sorry, I missed part of the requirement, but at the moment, couldn't we just do this with like a dynamic related list? Like we don't need the screen flow at all.
That's a great point. Well, let's think about that. So in this case, we're going to be looking at actually help me out with the object model here, but basically you have the service record. That's the piece that contains like the timer functionality, right? Or the time that they should be followed up with. So
right. So you got a case, and then you got a service that's related to that case, and then a timer that's tied to the service.
Okay, so we're talking about 3 objects here. We have the case, we have the service, and then there's a timer as three separate objects, and you're looking at the service record, and we'd want to create a dynamic list of some kind that would show for the case all the other related services and their timer details all in that list. So, Stephen, I think we could do it. I think where the challenge comes in is that it's not just like one object that we're working with. It's like multiple jumps on the objects. And I don't know if the criteria on a dynamic list view would do that. Maybe it would. We could take a look, but let's come back to that one. And maybe, I don't know, Ashley, if you have like a sandbox that we could test that out in your org with your exact data model. But yes. All right. So just to yeah.
Yeah, I don't have it handy at the moment.
Okay.
So
all right. So that's even something that maybe we could set up a more realistic data model and we can test that out. But just looking at this, so if I did a screen flow, disclaimer for anybody that's new to these calls, it's not like we had this prepared beforehand, so I'm probably going to trip over myself a few times here. So just bear with me as we kind of go through this. But let's start with the most basic thing, a screen. All right. So this is going to be my case related case viewer screen. Okay. And this is okay. Yeah. Description. Let's all come up with a good description in our minds. And we'll leave that blank for now. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to save this right now. It's just an empty screen. Done. And we're going to need a few things before we actually get started here. So we're going to need to pass in the ID of the current case that we're looking at, right? So I'm going to do new resource. And because Stephen is in my view, I'm going to call this record ID. However, I'm going to do this as a record and available for input. And this will be case. Did I do that right? So this will pass in all the details. Okay, perfect. All right, so that passes in whatever case that we're looking at when we launch this screen flow. It's going to pass in the details into this this variable. So we got that. So now in our screen, I want to display some details about that case. All right, so in theory, I should be able to do I don't know, based on the record that we passed in. I just want to show the subject. I guess I got to do something else here, don't I? I got to put in like a. Is there a component that these things have to be in? Let's see. Subject. I can't just drag that on here. Oh, there we go. Subject. And then description. And some date. I don't know. Where's the created date? Is there a created date on here? Okay, I guess not. Date. Okay, that's kind of lame. All right, in any case, so we got the subject and the description for the current case that we're looking at. And then we want to be able to get all the other related cases. All right, so I'm just going to click done again, just close that screen. So before we get to the screen, I'm going to throw in a get. And this is going to be get all related cases. Again, we're all going to come up with whatever description fits in each of our own hearts by ourselves. So we'll do case. I'm going to get all cases where the account ID is equal to, and then this is where we're going to kind of traverse the case that we're looking at account. So we want to make sure that we match that account ID. Now, the other key thing here is that if I were just to query all the cases from that account, I'm also going to get the case that we're currently looking at, which we don't want, right? So we also want to put in a criteria here where the ID of the cases that we get is not equal to the case that we passed in. All right, so just that case ID. So this will prevent us from, grabbing essentially like a duplicate case for the one that we're currently looking at. So that looks good. We'll change that to all records. Everything else will leave as default here. And I think that looks good. And again, why is there a save button? So lame. I hate that stupid pop-out thing. All right, so we got that. We got all of our cases. Now on our screen, we want to display not only the fields from the current case, but then the related list that kind of shows, all the other cases for that account. So in theory, and again, bear with me here, it's been a while. We should be able to drag on this data table component. And this is going to be related cases. We'll give it a label as cases related to the same account. Yeah, sure. Use it as the title. The source collection now should be the cases from the get all related cases that we just did a few minutes ago. So I'll select that. And then this is where it gets a little clunky. I don't really like the way this UI is, but now we need to configure what rows do we want and what columns and things that we want. So for row selection right now, I'm just going to set that to view only. For the columns, though, this is the most important part. We're going to want to have the case number done, add column, scroll down. Again, I always find this very clunky. Let's do a subject, done, add, and then I'll throw the description, done, and then maybe see if I can get the date here. Yeah, so let's do create a date there. All right, so we got a bunch of fields on here. And actually, I'll throw in a close date or status or stage or whatever the field is. Status. Okay. In theory, I don't know. This that should do it. So I'm going to save this real quick. And we'll call this view case and related cases. Again, come up with a description that's meaningful to you. Put it in there. And I'm going to activate this. Now, just as a trivia or a question for the group, to hide my own ignorance, what's the best way to get this screen flow onto the case layout so that somebody can click a button?
You could just embed it and then put a button on your screen, actually, or something. And that's not what you're asking for, though.
Didn't we just talk about this
drag the flow component over in the Lightning record page.
Right. So we'll do that as our first option here, just to test.
That's if you want to straight embed it and it's just there.
Yeah, let's try that first.
Some kind of a button to refresh it.
Yeah, let's do that first, and then we'll go. We'll try the button approach where we can actually launch that screen without having it display at all times. So from here, over on our components list, I have flow as an option. So I'm going to drag that chumpy over here. We should be able to select and find, assuming I activated that thing. Did I activate it? Yeah. What do we call that? View case, view something or other. View case and related case. We'll go with one column. Then we're going to pass in, we'll make sure we check that box to pass in the details from the current case that we're looking at into the flow. And in theory, assuming I didn't dork anything up here, that should do it. So let's activate this since it's the first time I'm making changes. We added the flow component onto the case Lightning page. And if I go back here, let's see if that works. So I would expect to see the subject and description from this current case that we're looking at. And then I would expect to see two other cases listed in the table that we created.
I haven't really used the new fields thing, so I didn't know that it would actually pull them in for you populated. That's awesome.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's cool. I think for our use case, since it's it would have to be more of like a button. They're not going to want.
Yeah. So let's figure that out right here. So what we can do, what can we
leave
do?
it in both places right now if you want.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I'm gonna
let's
do.
go over here, edit object, and then
Lightning action.
it's your actions, links, and buttons. I don't know whether you want an action or a button off the top of my
You
head.
want an action.
I like to be
with
action oriented. So
I've used buttons when I wanted to pass in variables and other kinds of stuff. So
all right. So
But
from
we're
our
talking
action type.
about, oh, sorry.
No, good.
I was just going to say for future everything, is it better to just automatically start with Lightning record pages from now on?
Yeah.
I mean, probably.
Yeah. If it's something brand new, I would absolutely just go straight with the Lightning record page. For page layouts and Lightning record pages,
Cloud is your pain in the rear there.
I won't have to worry about that. So,
Yeah,
but
if you got external users, that's your fly in the ointment.
Nope.
So,
Okay.
Some places of the world, flying the ointment might be a delicacy. You never know. All right, so let's view case and related. All right, so there we go. Here is our flow action that we're going to create. Megan, yeah, I didn't realize there was the limitation with Experience Builder, but if it was just like pure Salesforce stuff, I think definitely just go with the lightning record page. Page layouts and all that stuff. I hope at some point they just remove them all.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like I said, this org is brand new and I get to build it basically however I want. And I want to streamline it as much as possible. And I just don't want the erroneous like page layouts and all the crap. Like I'd rather just filter view in here, honestly.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is even if Salesforce says that they're going to retire it, I'm guaranteeing that they'll have at least one giant client that for whatever reason has like 400 objects with page layouts and they can't do the migration in time and everything else. And it'll just be one of those where they keep kicking the can and they never retire page layouts. That's my
They're
prediction.
still running classic, so they can't use the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, like
so,
if you're trying to change anything that's from a managed package on a page layout, you still have to go into page layouts to do it manually. You can't do it from here.
all right. So, all right. So I did this very quickly, but I want to kind of touch on this real quick, just for those that might not be aware. And actually, just so I can highlight this, I'm going to refresh the page and do it again. So a lot of times when you're in a Salesforce org, that somebody hasn't updated with the latest and greatest stuff, you might come in here and it's got this this component at the top here, which is the highlights panel, and you'll notice this little message here saying you can upgrade to dynamic actions. If it's the old school one, like we're looking at here, the actions that display here are based off of the page layout settings that we were just referring to, the old page layouts. So what you can do, you can click on this upgrade now. You can do the migration or you can do start from scratch. I almost always do start from scratch because when you do migrate, it'll pull in like 400 things that you've never seen on your page layout before. So I think it's best just to go with start from scratch. And then you can, right here. So right now we have no actions except for that goofy follow thing, which we'll hide right now. And then I'll click add action. So you have all your standard ones here, like we have edit and delete and all that good stuff. So I'll add edit. And then if we click on that again and we scroll down, you'll see there's a quick actions section here. And our lightning action that we just created is going to be visible there. So I can click on that guy, click done. And again, in theory, if I save this, we should now be able to go back and launch that same exact flow with the button now.
Yeah. And we'll see some inception because you've got the embedded one still, right? And then, so it'll be kind of cool.
So if I do view case and related, yay, there it is. All right. Now, again, this is very basic in that we're just displaying this information, but we can start building upon this flow, to be able to select one of these records, click next. It'll take you to a screen where you can edit it, make changes, come back. You can make it where, if you do some, maybe you have a field in here that's like update from service provider. You type everything in there, and then in this related list, you say, check off all the ones that you can immediately close out because we already got the status on. You check all 5 of them, click next, and it'll, change their statuses or update their timers, whatever it is. A lot of things you can do from here, but getting the data, that's step 1. Building all that stuff would be step 2.
Now that's exactly what I was looking for. It'll take some work to figure out exactly how to do it since it's not directly like a related case. I have to figure that piece out, but at least knowing, it's out there, this capability, I just need to explore how to make it work for me, but
yeah,
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think, the hardest part of this might be traversing some of those relationships. If you're on that timer record or that service record, you have to be able to, traverse to try to find all the related ones. But I think everything should be doable. I don't think there's any limitations there. Steven, you got a hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you could share screen again, Bill,
Sure.
and then you can just go through like doing this with a dynamic related list.
Oh yeah, let's give that a whirl. So let's close this thing. Walk me through it. Good.
Okay, yeah, if you go edit page.
And now with mass updates to related lists coming online, this release, you can still do a lot of the extra functionality that you would have needed a flow for. So heck yeah, let's see Steven's approach.
So on the left, if you want to grab dynamic related list single, and then maybe just pop it, up the top there. And then for the parent record, when it loads up, then you can just choose account name.
I don't know if I paid my Trailhead bill this month. Going down here.
Did it not bring it over?
I promise I'm not like streaming on my other screen or anything like that. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, it did bring it over. I can see the heading up here. Let's click out of it and then try to go back into it maybe.
No, no, I see it.
Come on. Seriously?
I got it up on my screen if you want instead of.
Yeah. Here, I'll stop share.
So this is the list here. And then so normally when you bring it across, it'll come in with use this case, but then anything related, you can just, go up to the account, and then based on the account or the account related lists, so, you get the assets, the contacts, the contracts or whatever, but here we're wanting cases. And then so it's the same idea where then you just get everything that's in that, typical account list view. And then, like Ryan was saying, you can do the mass update actions like the inbuilt ones, or you can just begin your flow from the related list view. So if you knew you needed to just want to update 3 records or something, you could start your flow at that point without having to do that initial screen.
So let me ask you a question, Stephen.
Okay.
From this view, if you go down to the criteria section on the dynamic related list, what kind of flexibility do we have for the filters of this? I'm sorry, on the filtering part of this. Do we have the ability to say, well, let's start with the easiest one. Can we exclude the current case from this related list where the ID is not equal to the current case? Would that be something we can do? It is called case ID, just case, I guess.
Yeah, I assume so. I was looking for it, but
Because I know like on the visibility filters, you have a lot of flexibility with, the kind of advanced filtering.
yeah. Yeah, maybe not, but I guess like it's only going to be the one, isn't it? Overlap.
Yeah, I guess the no here. Okay, so here's some workarounds. If you can't do it directly through that filtering mechanism, what I was thinking next, and this would apply for the timer functionality as well. You could, in theory, create a formula field called. Well, how would you do that? I guess you wouldn't. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't be able to pass in the record ID. Yeah, I don't know. That would be one item. The other one would be the timers. I was going to suggest the formula field where if the time of that timer is plus or minus 15 minutes, whatever it is, it's true. Otherwise, it's false. And then in this criteria, when you're doing your filtering here for the dynamic related list, you can just say, is that formula field equal to true? Right. So embed your more complex logic in the formula field and then just reference it here.
But it also
Yeah.
be useful in your flow if you don't want to have to do a sub get or anything like that. So
That's a good point. Yeah. Your criteria for the gets could be like that as well. And that might actually be the best option because you think about this. If we think back to the screen flow example, if you did use a formula field that was, again, timer is within the next 15 minutes, and that's what we use for our criteria. You can also imagine a list view, an actual list view for the timer object where it's just showing all the timers across the entire organization that are within the next 15 minutes. So independent of a single case, you'd be able to look at that one view and see everything that's coming up in the next time frame, right? So using that exact same field.
That's what I was sort of thinking, like if a report based on all the timers coming due, you can set it based on, the time, but also you could filter it by the phone number it's set to call, because that's really what we're aiming for. So if we can do it like that might be the way.
Yeah. So formula field or through the logic built within the flow. I think you could probably get away with that either way.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
It is. It's definitely helpful.
Right.
So there was a few questions that we had in the chat, and the number one that I want to make sure that we address. Let me make sure that this person is still on the call. Let's see. Is Emmanuel still here? I don't see Emmanuel. Oh yeah, Emmanuel, you're right at the top. Okay. So yes, your question about advanced versus beginner, right? So sometimes we'll have a question that comes up that leads us down a more advanced path. But please keep in mind that you can ask any question, no matter how simple you think it is. Bring it up, and we'll try to answer it. And I would go so far as to say that I would love to front load as many questions from beginners as possible that we possibly can, because that's really what this call is for, is to help, folks, especially beginners, as they're trying to learn Salesforce. So even if we went off on a tangent like this, we got, through some semi-advanced stuff, don't feel bad with the next question if you think it's going to be somewhat simple. I'm sure there's other people on the call that could learn from it as well. So yeah, absolutely. Bring up any question that you got. Happy to answer it. And I think Anthony said the same thing in the chat. So thank you, Anthony. All right. Now I don't know what the
Andy, how did you catch a bird?
I was about to ask what what?
Well, I was sitting here and all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I saw something out the window, and basically it was a bird trying to fly and it wasn't doing it very successfully. So I just went outside and managed to catch it after a few minutes. And so it is, unfortunately, it looks pretty sick. Both its eyes are shut and all that kind of stuff. So I've got it in a box right now, but yeah, that's why I disappeared.
Or I'll be the one to ask. Okay, can we see the bird or no? Can we not see the bird? Hold on a minute, and I'm gonna just to make sure that we can all see this. What a lovely room, by the way, too. Look at that. And there's another animal. Don't let the animal. Is that a cat in the chair?
Cat, the cat.
Keep the cat away from the bird, please.
Oh, Anthony's here. Hi, Anthony.
Yeah,
You
I've always
received
liked
a-
your background. You're
Okay, if the bird, I'll feel so bad if that bird flies away while we're on the call here because I asked to see the bird. All right. Oh my God. This,
Schrodinger's bird.
oh, the bird. Okay. Yeah,
Your cat doesn't care.
make sure the cat stays asleep. That's the key.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that cat to jump over her shoulder.
That
Oh,
one's
man.
20 years old. She's not jumping anywhere.
Wow. All right. I don't have any wildlife tips. But does anybody have any other questions or topics that they would like to go through for today? Or questions on stuff that we already walked through?
Bill, I was going to throw something out that may be in conjunction with your contract story.
Oh, yes. Sure.
I just have this weird thing, on contracts, you have a start date, and then you can either have an end date that you can edit, or you can use the contract length to automatically set the end date. So
Sure.
you say 60 months, it sets automatically. So in my org, we disabled the auto calculate so that people can put a start and end date manually to the contract. But for whatever reason, only system administrators can actually do it. So the users can edit the records, create records, everything like that. They just can't edit that field. And I think the next obvious question is, do they have access to the field? They do. So we did have it set to auto calculate. We unchecked the box to auto calculate, but only one profile can actually do it. So
Okay, let me say that back to you.
Yep.
Somebody have a comment before I was just going to repeat just to make sure I fully understand. Okay. So as I understand this, you have the contract object. The contract object, for those that haven't worked on it, you have a start date, and then there's like a drop down that's like, or a length of contract where you can put in the number of months that the contract is. And when you populate that field, it automatically populates the end date. So what you guys want to do is turn off that functionality because it's kind of weird, and you just want to be able to put in a start date and an end date directly. The challenge is that in your org, only admins are able to edit that end date field, and standard users is showing up as like read only or something.
Yeah, it's like it looks like it does when it's still set to auto calculate, like it's a formula field.
Okay. And whose screen are we looking at right now?
This is mine.
Okay. All right. I don't know who is calling me, and my computer is ringing. Hold on a minute. Oh, Lord. Here we go. Okay. All right. So where's the end date field?
So here's contract start.
Yep. There we go.
Here's contract end. Here's the contract term. So if that box is, checked on the settings, this auto calculates. And if
Okay.
it's not, then you can fill it in.
Now, can we see what this looks like from a standard human's perspective?
Watch it work.
Was it like a caching issue? And it was
No,
okay.
yeah, there you go.
All right, so let's do this. Let's log out as this user. And the first thing we want to do is look at that user, what profile they're in. Let's just start from security as our starting point.
So the profile is WH user.
Okay, so let's go in there and let's actually go to the object settings and let's go to the contract object. Okay, and where's the end date field? Contract end date looks like read access and edit access. Okay. Okay, so they got field level security. Now, what is that layout that we're looking at? Is that the page layout or is that a lightning page, like record form or whatever they're going to these days?
That's a good question.
So I'm wondering that, is it somehow made read only at the layout level? And because you're an admin, you have that checkbox that's like edit read only fields. So as an admin, you'd be able to edit, but they would be stuck.
Good idea.
That's a real good idea.
Okay, so that looks like a page layout. So we want to go into the setup for the contract object and go to page layouts, and we'll take a look at it there. And if it's not this, then I'm guessing it's just some weird quirk. Oh, look at that. Let's see.
Oh, you're right.
If you double click on that guy.
Oh my
Nice.
gosh.
There you
Problem
go.
solved. Yay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't have a really good way to demonstrate this, to explain this, but the issue that I had with contracts this past week, and this is good to know for those that work with contracts and orders. Way back when, for whatever ridiculous reason, we decided to use contracts like orders. So we created a bunch of fields to keep track of like values and all that kind of stuff. And eventually, as my team grew and they had more common sense than I did, we asked the question, why aren't we using orders? So we migrated all of our old contracts over to orders. Now, as part of the migration, what I did was I left the contracts in place, created all the order records, create all the products related to them, all that good stuff. And I populated the contract field on the order. So the theory was, as my team is going through and validating, hey, do all the orders that you just inserted look okay? If there was an issue, we can go back to the original contract, figure out what the problem was, and then fix it, right? Well, fast forward, it's been like 6 months. My team comes to me and says, all those old contracts are still in there. Can we clean them up? Because it's like muddying up my view. So I'm like, sure. So I go in there and I delete all those old contracts, only to find out that it deletes all the orders as well, right? So if you have the orders that have the lookup populated to the contract, when you delete that parent contract, it deletes all the related orders. And then I was thinking, okay, well, that's simple enough. I restored them all from the recycling bin. And my theory was I was just going to delete blank out the contract field and all the orders so that it wasn't related anymore. And then I could delete the contracts. Well, you can't, because once the order is activated, you can't modify that field. So long story short, what I had to do was write a script. I did this in Apex just because, again, you hold the hammer kind of thing. And I did it where I grabbed all the related orders that needed to be modified. I changed their statuses from like paid to draft. I saved. I updated the contract field to blank them out. So I changed the status and removed the contract, saved it, deleted all the contracts, the related contracts, re-edited all the orders to change them back to paid. So it was like just a quick script. But yeah, the bottom line is if you have an order with a contract, you delete the contract, it deletes all your orders as well. So that was my lesson learned this week. So yeah, I was in one of those just delete everything moods this past week, deleting old fields, proof of concepts that we created, old records. But You got to be a little bit more careful, I guess. You know.
Yeah, I've got a internal project for contracts. And so I've never really dealt with them. So now I'm learning all sorts of weird things. So like there is a field that's like that owner expiration notice.
Yeah.
So that, which is supposedly a pick list, but of course you can't edit it, which is weird. But there's apparently a secret hidden one called owner expiration notification date. So
It's driven from that pick list.
I'm guessing like if you are in like actual looking in the fields on that object, it doesn't exist there. It doesn't exist when I'm trying to create a flow to use that as a thing. But when I was doing a formula field, because basically I was going to make a checkbox saying, hey, that notification date is today, so that it goes through the scheduled flow and creates a renewal opportunity.
Yeah.
And so when I started working on that formula, that field came up and I'm like, wait.
So you
And
can see it from the formula, but not from flow.
Not from flow, not from the actual field list. And if you go to that Salesforce document that has a glossary of all the standard objects and fields, it's not on there either. So
All right, so let's just take a quick look just so we can see that. So if I were to go to the contract object real quick.
yeah, contact, right?
You know how many times over my career I've mistyped that stupid thing?
I think all of us.
All
I
right,
saw that
so
in the chat.
Contract. Okay, so we go to contracts. The field that we're talking about here, if I were to create a new contract, and we just select one of our accounts, you can see here that we have the start date, and then we have this contract term, and then owner expiration date. Okay, so let's just say this is going to be 60 months, like we were just talking about, and then you got this thing in here. So the theory is that 15 days, 30 days, whatever it is, before the contract end date, that's when the owner will be notified that the contract is expiring. Now, what you're saying is that if I were to save this here, just create that, and let's go into setup. And we go to, edit object. So you're saying that, what is the name of the field? The date field? It's like contract expiration date or notification date or something?
Owner expiration or something like that. Owner expiration. It starts with owner.
Okay. So if we look at, what I'll do here is just sort by data type, and then we'll scroll down to the date section. We have the contract start end date, and then we have the signed dates, but nothing that's like notification date or anything like that. Now, just for fun, if we were to go to developer console and pull up the object here, I'm curious if we would see all the fields here. So let's go to, we went to the gear icon, developer console, file open, go to objects, and then type in contract. Double click on contract. And then if we scroll down to, well, believe it or not, there you go. So owner expiration notice, that's the pick list. Okay, so let's sort this by alphabet. And I don't see any kind of
owner expiration notice date.
Yeah, so it's not here. And if we just look at our dates and date times, I don't see anything even remotely related to that. However, what you're telling me is that if I were to go into fields and relationships and do a new formula field, I will be able to see the date there.
At least it did on mine.
That seems very inconsistent and silly, if you ask me. But let's just see. Yes.
I did checkbox because I wanted to basically have the
okay. In the
it equals today or whatever it was what I was doing.
All right, so let's go to advanced builder. Insert field, and you're telling me. Yeah, there it is. Wow. Look at that. So that's kind of lame. Yeah. So you can't see it through developer console. You can't see it as a field in the fields and relationships, but you can actually reference that field within formula field.
So I guess that we can do something in a formula that we can't do in the developer console.
Yeah, it seems kind of silly, right? The only thing I might say is that knowing that that's some kind of limitation in the system, right? Maybe just creating a date formula that's called owner expiration notice date or whatever it is, like a custom field for that. And then you can use that field anywhere else that you want, whether a list view or flows, whatever it is. So essentially it's just a field that references this field that you can't see in those other places. That might be the kind of workaround for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just trying to, because, so I mean, you've got that standard functionality where it will notify the owner based on whatever date,
Yeah.
Time frame you set up. But they also want like a renewal opportunity automatically created as well. So
yeah,
trying to do a scheduled flow, it's like, I don't want every single contract to hit it and then it has to, at least start it to do a decision. I just want it to only really go through it if it meets criteria. So that's why I was gonna, and obviously, and you can't put that formula in the start element.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good approach. Do it with that formula field, and then.
So I basically just accidentally discovered it because I'm like, well, it's easier to create the formula on an object than to have to go in and change your flow every time you want to change some criteria. So
yeah. Now the other option is do all your logic. Don't even worry about that owner expiration notification date field, and just do it based on the end date itself. I guess that could be a way. And then the other kind of lesson learned doing similar things like this, where you want to create some related record, like a renewal opportunity based on this expiration date. Definitely, well, don't definitely. I'm just saying one suggestion could be have a lookup field on the contract called renewal opportunity. That when you create that renewal opportunity, you just drop the ID back in that field so that you can see that it has already processed and you already have the renewal opportunity. The only reason why I think that's beneficial, depending on how you have that schedule and other things that might be going on, you don't have to worry about, you could filter out the contracts that already have that renewal opportunity field populated. So for example, if your salesperson, they're looking at it right now, they're talking to the client and they decide to manually create the renewal opportunity, they can fill it in that field as well. And then you don't have to worry about that automation kicking in anyway and creating a duplicate, right? So something to consider.
Yeah, I think, I just got started with it. So, but I mean, that was going to be my plan was to do, but I still wanted to create something like that checkbox that says today is the day to send that, create the stuff. So I just kind of happened to accidentally stumble on that. And I was just like, oh,
yeah.
All right. But yeah, those were my options, was to do based on end date or whatever. So, but I was just like, that's really odd.
We'll add that to our list of Salesforce quirks. So. All right, cool. Well, it looks like it's 1:00. I want to thank everybody who had questions, everybody that helped out with answers. If we didn't get to something or you have other questions, throw a note in Slack or on LinkedIn, whatever it is. And I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll catch up next week.
Yeah.
So thanks
for showing me something fun, Sandy.
Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for showing us.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.